The Disney era of Star Wars is marked with divisive movies like The Last Jedi and disasters such as The Rise of Skywalker. However, if there's one thing that Disney was able to do right, other than some of the shows, it was Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Despite how it is a spin-off story about some minor characters who don't have space magic, Rogue One is now seen as the only good movie to come out of Disney's Star Wars by many. Why is this so, and how did Rogue One do what the sequels couldn't? Warning, there are major spoilers, obviously.
Repeat stuff! Repeat stuff!
The Force Awakens was a pretty okay movie, and it is very good in terms of being one of the sequel Star Wars movies, but it heavily follows the story beats of the original trilogy. First, a girl on a desert planet gets picked up on a space mission in the Millennium Falcon. She and a motley crew go around doing whatever the plot tells them to do until a massive space laser destroys a planet or something. They go destroy the space laser and succeed, even though someone died on the way. The kicker here is that it feels exactly like the first movie, the original movie. All of the story beats are the same, and all of the characters are essentially the same. Everything just feels the same, except worse. In Rogue One, the movie starts off very distinctly when compared to the original. No text crawl, no famous John Williams themes, and most importantly, no space wizards on a desert planet. Rogue One essentially follows the story of some rebels and people they pick up along the way as they try to find info on a new massive weapon of the Empire, hopping around several planets like pirates going around different islands trying to find a cool treasure chest. It feels distinctly Star Wars, but doesn't directly take away from the original films nearly as much as The Force Awakens. I say this because it feels more like a war movie, somewhat similar to 1917, and creates entirely new characters, character types, and takes these characters and the plot in a new direction. Despite being trapped in between two very major movies, Rogue One still is able to take actually creative steps in terms of its elements. Something The Force Awakens, a movie that technically should have even more wiggle room to be more creative, doesn't do. The characters of The Last Jedi, especially legacy characters, are being misused to do actions outside of their already established character traits. This is demonstrated primarily in the portrayal of Luke Skywalker and the disappointing disposal of antagonists such as Captain Phasma and Supreme Leader Snoke. For today, we will be focusing on Snoke. Luke Skywalker, by the time The Last Jedi was released, was an already established character, with his personality already being cemented during the original trilogy, and the various novels taking place during that time period. During the previous installments, he was an optimistic young man who saw the good in everybody and was able to redeem even the likes of Darth Vader. In the sequels, however, Luke has become a bitter old man who wants nothing to do with the Resistance. He initially refuses to come to the aid of his sister and even throws away his old lightsaber, the Youngling Slayer 9000. He's become unrecognizable and changed beyond what we expected him to ever become. This is in contrast to the treatment of legacy characters in Rogue One. Unlike The Last Jedi, Rogue One uses its legacy characters quite sparingly, which adds impact to whenever they appear and when they act. Let's take a look specifically at Darth Vader. When Darth Vader is on screen, it is always with purpose, with that purpose being to physically harm whoever is on screen at that current moment. This is actually very in line with his original trilogy characterization because he still retains the fear factor and intimidation whenever he is on screen. For example, take the scene between him and Orson Krennic. When Vader chokes Krennic, there's a certain amount of satisfaction that I got when he lets go, somewhat demonstrating the level of villainy that Vader still retains. Unlike Luke, Vader still retains the essence of his character and maintains very consistent in Rogue One. It's honestly very disappointing if you ask me when talking about Luke. And then we have Snoke, the supreme big baddie that I personally was looking forward to see become a true antagonist against the Resistance. I thought he would become this big Darth Sidious-like character that would squash our main characters. However, we get this. Yes, the big bad evil guy of the sequels is dead. I feel like through J.J. Abrams, the showrunners were making Snoke out to be the biggest baddie of the Star Wars universe and would be a leading figure of the First Order throughout the entire movie series. And at least, if they killed him, that we would see something amazing done with Kylo and Hux, which doesn't happen. I really don't know what to say about this that could potentially be positive. In terms of a main antagonist in Rogue One, Director Krennic works very well as an antagonist. One of the biggest appeals for me for Director Krennic was that it just feels like his character was completed to fruition even after his death. His character arc was completely fulfilled and Snoke's wasn't. Krennic was a fleshed out character and got a lot of attention throughout Rogue One, but Snoke didn't have nearly that amount of attention. Snoke felt incomplete while Krennic was complete. To reiterate, Rogue One saw actual character development and good usage of its characters, while The Last Jedi saw neither of those. Here we go, the big shit, The Rise of Skywalker. It is probably the biggest dumpster pile of piece of media that I've ever watched. However, this isn't an excuse for me to simply dump on the sequels, and more specifically, this sad excuse of a Star Wars movie. No, it's that and a comparison with the best Star Wars movie that I've ever watched. Anyway, when I first watched it, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. However, 4 years later, I still don't know what is going on in that movie, like...
Oh, they fly now! They fly now! They fly now!
And...
somehow Palpatine returned.
It's like these are the lines that almost completely sum up the entire movie in terms of the utter confusion I felt and the unnecessary plot twist that it took. The Rise of Skywalker struggles with having a cohesive storyline, taking turns whenever it feels like it. With Rogue One, the plot doesn't take many plot twists, sticking simply to find the plans, help fight the Empire, and a few more stuff. The only big plot twist here is that Andor attempts to kill Jyn Erso's father, which the reasons for it are hinted at many times, including the fact that Andor might be doing something other than trying to save Jyn Erso's father. In terms of plot points, Rogue One is also much better at leveraging emotions. When we see scenes made to feel fear and sorrow, we feel those, but not so much with The Rise of Skywalker. In The Rise of Skywalker, I never really felt any fear or pretty much any emotions when there are emotional scenes. There's no build-up or anything, just disappointment. Finally, in The Rise of Skywalker, there are many quote-unquote important plot items, including a map knife, 2 maps to Palpatine, a person that can wipe C-3PO's memory, and quite a few more that I absolutely forgot. There's so many MacGuffins that this entire movie feels like an over-convoluted Easter egg hunt. In Rogue One, there are no longer many MacGuffins, or at least things that can be considered as MacGuffins. Yes, there's a Death Star plans, but it's primarily the Rebels trying to find the plans and not the Empire trying to block the Rebels from finding the plans. It's mostly the Empire doing damage control. The MacGuffin is mostly self-contained and doesn't change the plot in any massive way. Overall, The Rise of Skywalker is all over the place and twists and turns excessively, while Rogue One is focused and stays on track, creating a cohesive story. Anyway, there's no sponsor for today, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. It's my first professional style video essay, so there's a bunch of things that I did wrong here, but I hope you enjoyed anyway. Please give any feedback that you might have in the comments below, and I wish all of you an amazing time. Adios!